Welcome, everyone. Hail to my fellow Selvan citizens. I am the prophet of Pagulane. Come, join me by the fire. Sit a while and hear a thrilling and dramatic tale like no other. Walk the path with me amongst the gods of old in each chapter of Book 1, Fall of Immortals. Chapter 22, Elves Aquatica. Descending from the lycanthrope progenitor, King Lycaon, Odolph competed against the contenders of his generation and claimed the title of Alpha. He himself stood on top of a snowy mountain, observing as his forces were continuously routed by the Imperial infantry, which bolstered the Shylock forces. The Lycan packs had suffered heavy casualties against the Empire's stalwart defense. The Lycan Alpha had a bird's eye view of his warriors being slaughtered by disciplined veteran soldiers. With closed ranks, the infantry stabbed and speared the ravenous wolves, either pinning them to the ground or suspending them in the air for decapitation. Marshaled by arguably the best generals to ever tame an army, the infantry fought as a single strict unit, never lacking or exceeding their orders. Their king commanded they protect the border, and their advance always stopped at its edge. This infuriated King Odolph and mocked his aggressive tactics. Since their last defeat, Odolph had suspended all assaults on barges. When an assassin appears standing over you while you sleep, as a monarch, you appreciate that it is only a message they bear, and not death itself. In Atlantis, calm seas and the sound of seagulls welcomed Zalvin to the island city as the Vargin vessel docked at the bustling harbor. A late morning sun shined over a mass array of sea life, swimming around the island's clear waters as a naturally made aquarium. A massive palace could be seen from the harbor, located at the center of the island. The tone of its walls mirrored the color of the shallow sea, and gold rims encircled its towers. The corbels of the towers were crafted to look like king's crown shells, layered within 4 levels of archifier in any direction. As an added layer of defense, a moat encircled the palace, isolating it from the rest of the city. Over the moat stood a footbridge that led to a drawbridge beneath a guardhouse overlooking the approach to the palace and into the city. The drawbridge itself was made out of giant clamshells and coral, lifted and lowered by bronze chains. Beyond the guardhouse, spiked iron bars surrounded the palace interior, adorned by large, emerald-colored, hawksbill turtle shells. The gold symbol of 3 seahorses and a trident faced all that would pass through its rustic turquoise gate. As for the denizens of the archipelago, the aquatic elves, they built a thriving civilization. It was a welcoming home to many beings of the deep, such as sea nymphs, mermaids, and mermen, a result of copulation between the elves and nymphs. Their skins tended to have scales to varying degrees, depending on which half of their parents' genetics were stronger. The majority of the population appeared human, aside from their pointed ears and variable shades of skin. As an island nation, they were excellent fishermen and established legal seasons to maintain the balance of their marine ecosystem. That aside, as aquatic elves, they were adept swimmers and, unlike any of their other kin, capable of breathing underwater. However, like their kin, the aquatic elves were highly skilled craftsmen, archers, and balanced warriors. The Atlantean soldiers were formidable. They were clad in silver-lined, scaled armor, which iridescently gleamed with the colors of the ocean. The helmets of their armor had gold-finned ears, yet their design left their faces exposed for identification. They typically view people who wear hoods and hooded cloaks or hide their faces as suspicious. The Atlanteans typically dressed in robes and garments fitting to their individual roles or contributions. For example, fishermen spend most of their time diving, so they usually wear loincloth or light clothing. The majority of the population, however, wore tunics or dresses with thin sandals. The further you climb up the Atlantean hierarchy, the finer the quality of clothing, as you would discover among the 6,000 children of Oceanus who reside nearest to the palace. Then even higher above them, dwelling within the sea palace, were the royal family and descendants of Neptune. A private carriage was arranged for transportation to the palace. Zaldan's knights followed behind at a brisk marching pace as Xemnas and he were taken through the city. Even as king, Zaldan seldom demanded a grand announcement of his arrival when either leaving or entering the city, particularly in an environment ready to become hostile. Discretion was his obvious preference. "Who would pass through the palace gate?" the guard cried out from above the coral drawbridge. An armored minotaur stepped forward from the company of Imperial Knights, then moved to the front of the carriage to announce his benefactor's arrival and request to enter the palace. It was the duty of the most senior-ranked knight to make the proclamation, and Knight Captain Ricario had been briefed on what details to leave out. "We have with us a royal invitation for an audience with His Majesty. I have the charge of escorting the dignitary of Vargas to King Triton's court." Ricario lifted a roll of sealed documentation containing the approval of the coven to request an audience on their behalf. "I have here a message, sealed by the Vargas leadership. Announce my lord's arrival to your king, and we will be waiting your sire's audience." The guard looked down from the ramparts of the guardhouse and observed the sealed paperwork in the knight's elevated grip. Once he realized the scroll was sealed with the crimson ribbons of Vargas, he then signaled the soldiers in the guardhouse. "Lower the drawbridge." The bronze chains cranked as the two Atlantean soldiers within the guardhouse pushed and pulled the wheel that controlled the coral bridge. "You may pass," said the elven guard as he waved his hand to the soldiers posted at the inner gate. The carriage then proceeded onward, over the coral bridge, while groups of beautiful pink shells sparkled along its surface. As the Imperial Knights crossed behind, the carriage halted in front of the inner gate so that the War King and his companion could disembark, hood raised. Ambassadors from Vargas were allowed to conceal themselves from the sun out of consideration, although that did not make the Atlanteans any less cautious around them. The gold symbol on the face of the inner gate split open, and the Atlantean soldiers allowed Zaldan and his entourage to enter the palace courtyard. In the courtyard, there were tower fountains spread out in a line. The largest served as a centerpiece to the courtyard, and a pathway forward was crafted up to and around it, which then also proceeded into the palace hall. Minor gods, demigods, and high-ranking nymphs stared at their strange visitors while they lounged and fraternized in the plush open space. Xemnas paced behind his master, then looked up to Zaldan with concern. Petting the sapphire wolf's head, he whispered, "I am aware of the great risk taken here, my friend. However, we currently have the advantage of surprise and an invaluable opportunity. I won't let that by." The inner sanctum of the Atlantean palace was truly a testament to elvish craftsmanship. The masonry of the palace halls incorporated jade marble for the floors and ceilings, while ocean jasper and other sea stones comprised the walls throughout the extravagant structure. Many were gathered in the throne room awaiting their king. Zaldin drew the suspicious gazes of the Atlantean court as he handed his covered introduction to the royal secretary, who was standing in between the audience and the Atlantean thrones. Shogun of the Heavens Book 1 is available on Amazon and Amazon Kindle or for order at your local Barnes & Noble's bookstore. The Amazon link to purchase the book is in the description of the video. Behold, as we all dive into the world of myths and fiction,